So the short of it, it went really well. But real quick, I know I'm a little bit off center, but I'm trying to get closer to the camera, and this is just what I have to do to get closer to the camera. Unfortunately, I'm still working off from a webcam. At some point in time, I will update that as soon as I have copious amounts of money, but that time is not right now. But let me know if this works. I understand I have to be a little bit off center. If I do it this way, I might be able to get myself back on center if this isn't working for you. So this is a part where I do need some feedback from you. Thank you. Otherwise, no, the actual campaign diary itself, it went really well. So I knew approximately what was going to happen. I had this villain, this devil named Snaggletooth, and he had a summoner. They don't know his name yet. His name's Samuel. And the encounter with Samuel and the two imps and Snaggletooth went quite well. I was not expecting the roleplay with the imps to last as long as it did, or rather with one imp in particular, to last as long as it did. I'm glad it did, because I had a lot of fun with them.
I think I gave him some kind of chittery voice like this, and I like doing voices like this.
I think I gave him like a little bit
more of a whispery voice, though.
Where he was an invisible little imp that was following the party along, and I typically, when it comes to situations like that, you wouldn't talk to the party as an invisible character. You just stay there and just like be a jerk and like let them fall into your trap, and instead of giving away that you know where they are and that the villains know where you are. But I had a lot of fun just listening to them interact with this imp and seeing where they were going around and watching them explore this basement dungeon. Which wasn't a very huge dungeon at all. It was really just a place for an encounter, really. Above ground before they came in, I had fun introducing Trudy. I need to rewatch the footage and try and figure out what I was doing for her voice, though. I believe it was something like this. It was very like a mix between articulate and slurred. It's very similar to my own voice, because I don't do good girl voices.
Hi guys, look at me!
No. So when I do a girl voice, I try and do my own voice and then just do things a little bit differently. I can be a little bit more breathy if I really want to. So like one could say this is not unlike a girl voice, but like I don't do this very often. I try not to anyway. But anywho, I had fun with Trudy. She did get an ample amount of screen time, in my opinion. I got to name drop her friend Trimb. Reens, I believe, is their last name. Trimb has a brother who... It depends on what the party does, but I believe will be plot important. Trimb and Trudy and Trim's brother work for a secret organization of dragon folk known as the Dawn Scales, and we'll see if the party ends up investigating that route or not. Perhaps it'll just be a nice little nod to something that'll happen in another campaign in the future, because when it comes to D&D, nothing is ever lost. You follow the party along. If the party doesn't care about this thread, that's fine. That thread can remain unpulled. We can pull other threads. So, anywho, so Trudy going to rescue Tremb was very important. It wasn't just me shoehorning in an NPC where I can talk, because clearly I didn't need Trudy. I didn't talk very much with Trudy past her introduction. Then I was more than content playing the villains, particularly that imp. That imp was a lot of fun. But the party tiptoed down into the basement, interacted with this imp, and then they effectively had a few choices. There's a more open room where there is a table that has been set that they didn't investigate, and there's two sides of double doors, and there's another hallway. So effectively they have four big choices. I did four big choices at the very beginning, and my game plan was initially it was a little bit different. But based off from their actions, I decided, no, the enemy does know they're there, so then what would the enemy do? I think they would wait, they would try and loop back upstairs, which they did, such that when the party goes into the torture room, I can make a grand entrance as Snaggletooth, and then Sam was going to stay up top and just use spiritual weapon from up there. He was going to be very annoying that way that he'd be a bit of a challenge, because Kov won't be able to do jack shit against him. But Gale might have some ranged spells that they can show off. Perhaps Jozo's character, Thord, might have prepared, what's it called? Oh, guided bolt, something like that. It's a fairly common cleric spell that's ranged. Maybe he had it, maybe he didn't. It was just a nice, what I was thinking, an opportunity for them to show off their ranged options if they had any. And if not, then hey, they'll get creative, they'll figure something out. In this case, Gale ended up flying out of the room and then happened to run into Samuel just right then and there. He's like, oh, okay, great. So, so then they had a bit of a kerfuffle. Samuel failed to grapple him and fell down the hole, and that changed the entirety of the combat scenario. But the party members still had enough things that they could show off. For the most part, it became more of a display of Kov's tankiness and the effect of his ancestors really making it inconvenient to attack his allies and driving the damage focus towards him. And then, of course, after the Scroll of Banishment went off, then the focus turned towards, alright, the Imps and Sam need to go and focus on Thord, because if they do, Snaggletooth can come back. If they don't, then, well, there's Snaggletooth just gone now, and Sam's gonna have to do a new ritual at some point in time to get him back, if he's allowed to do that, of course. The party may just kill him, but at the very least, they've brought him back. I have a few ideas for him, but I'll be honest with you, Sam is not one of my more developed NPCs. I know that he wants revenge, and I know that he wants power to do that revenge. Who the people he wants revenge on are, I don't know. I just know that he turned to a pact with a devil to get him powers. So what I used for the time being was the Cult Fanatic stat block, because it's a solid stat block and the spell list is great. Like, honestly, like Spiritual Weapon and Hold Person didn't go off, which made me a little bit sad, but these things happen. And if it had gone off, oh boy, the battle would have gone in a completely different direction, I think. So it's probably for the best that Hold Person didn't work. But still, the Cult Fanatic is a very nice stat block. The only problem I have with it is it's got a little bit more of a cleric flavor to it than an actual, like, warlock flavor to it. So if I do use Sam again in the future, I probably will give him a more customized stat block to reflect that more Pact of the Fiend warlock type direction that he's taken in life. I think I'll keep like the spells that we've seen him use so far from the Cult Fanatic sheet, but nevertheless, I'll probably tweak him if he does make another appearance in combat. But otherwise, no, he might just be a NPC that rots in a jail and is forgotten about and I don't do anything with. Snaggletooth I like as a character. I like his design. I think he's technically a bearded devil. I tweaked him a lot. He doesn't have a beard. And I gave him some back spines, and I wanted to do something with like someone getting impaled on the back, and then I think that replaced the beard attack for the most part. That it was effectively just a reflavor. I don't remember exactly what I did, but but it worked, and the party had fun against it, and they still won at the end, so that's all that really matters, really. So maybe Snaggletooth will make another appearance at some point in time. Depends on, actually, probably Tombstone's party. I'm not sure that I could reasonably shoehorn Snaggletooth back into the story where it comes to Crimson Anvil. But with the other party, there are some directions they could take, some decisions they could make, some spells they could take that would allow me to bring Snaggletooth back. But Snaggletooth is not like any kind of big in-game villain. He was just designed as like a one-shot villain, a baddie for this little quest, and he served his purpose well, I think. The imps, I had no plans for them whatsoever. I now have a plan for one of them. The other one can go fuck off. I don't know where he's going. But the one they named, I forget what it was. It started with a K, and then it's the Destroyer. So we'll see where the Destroyer's quest line takes him. I also got to introduce a goblin character that's been brewing in my head for a very long time, Smoothick.
Smoothick is very fidgety and he makes panting noises. And he's very excitable.
And I had, when I imagined this character, he was gonna be like a bit of like a mercantile type character. He'd have his own little cave or hole that he'd live in, and he was going to be a solo character instead of having a tribe. I think I'm going to change that. In my setting, goblins aren't as neutral as they're treated in settings like the Forgotten Realm. In my setting, they certainly are monstrous. And I think it's going to be very interesting moving forward, seeing Jozo and Thord, by extension, exploring that concept of monsters versus people. Because something that Jozo and, by extension, Thord don't seem to grasp is racism is a thing in this setting. It's a big thing, and it's not as simple as, I'm playing a character that fights against racism, so everything will be hunky-dory. No, that goblin, if he does bring him back to a town, will be in for, we'll say some things. If the party's not willing to protect him or fight for the goblin, and that could create problems of their own. Perhaps under other circumstances lose them, I guess, prestige. Perhaps even get them exiled. In this particular case, because Thord does have a uncle with some sway, he might be able to alleviate some of that that weight that would come from him trying to bring a goblin into a town. But the majority of the townsfolk will not like that action at all or agree with it, and many of them, if not publicly threaten Smoothick, will certainly, behind the scenes, look to threaten Smoothick. I don't think that Smoothick will be sticking around very long. I assume that he will die very quickly. As for Sam, I don't know, honestly. I have a lot of thinking to do with that character, and then it also comes down to when, if at all, the PCs interact with him and how they interact with him. Perhaps there can be a redemption arc for him. I need to come up with exactly who wronged him and why, and what he can do about it, or rather what he planned to do about it, and what he can currently do about it. Perhaps he'll try and sway the party to his side, but I don't think he will. He's a commoner, he has no real influence. That's why he turned to devils, because he is literally desperate. He is not anyone impressive whatsoever. And so we'll see what we do with poor Samuel. So there's a lot of different things we can do. One key thing, I've already spoiled it for a few of my friends, and I've told them not to say anything, but I will now let things on a little bit more. Again, please don't tell my players from the Crimson Anvil campaign. But the ruby that Trim and Trudy recovered was a part of their plan. Now, getting captured and tortured was not a part of Trim's plan, nor Trudy's plan, or any of the Dawnscale's plan, but the reason that they were there in the first place was for that large ruby. And them getting that ruby puts a clock in the background ticking forward. And we'll see if the Crimson Anvil party interacts with this clock or not. But at the very least, things have been put into motion, and this certainly could become a focus of the campaign. We'll just have to wait and see if it does become focus of the campaign or not. But this is certainly something that the party could influence, either for better or worse. But there is certainly a faction of dragon folk who worship a dragon god that has been, I guess, not really lost to time, expunged deliberately from the annals of history by the humans and the dwarves, or at least that's what Trim's brother preaches. He has a name, I just don't have it memorized. But these champions of this lost dragon god and what they plan to do with this ruby, I think could end up being very interesting. We'll just have to wait and see. As for the party themselves, I need to put a little bit more thought into it, but ultimately I think they'll have a choice to go up to Ross, the hamlet of Ross right now with their new dragonfolk friends. They've also got to deal with Smoothick when they enter town. And then they've also still got those other 2 quests they can look into. Once they take one of those other 2 quests, unless they have like an immediate other objective where they are now generating their own quests, because that's kind of how D&D campaigns work, is that every now and then once they get going on something, they can focus that down, and then that can become the entire campaign instead of it just being quest taking. But once they take their next actual quest, I'll probably generate another quest or 2 to stick on the board. And so it certainly could maintain this rhythm of it being, you go on an adventure and you come back, and then you take another quest, you go on an adventure, you come back, yada yada yada. That's where I'm at. Again, as you can tell, my DM style is very much, it should be driven by the players and their characters and what they care about. We'll see how Thord's War on Racism goes, but I'll tell you this, it's not going to be a simple matter of, I make a persuasion check in the right moment and now the entire town's not racist anymore. Curing racism in this setting, I'm not sure is possible, and that action in and of itself could be the entire plot of a campaign. At the very least, you could funnel countless gold and downtime hours towards that goal. So I'm not exactly. We'll see how Jozo plays it, but people don't like goblins for a reason. People are still wary of the members of the main 3 races. The elves, the humans, and the dwarves are still wary of each other for a reason. There is peace now, but there has not always been peace. There has been war more than there has been peace. Peace is a relatively recent thing, and people don't think it's going to last, and for good reason. So, yeah. Cryptic bullshit aside, I guess that's a good enough place to cut this off at. You guys have a good night, and I'll see you possibly next Sunday. That should be the start of Tombstone this time. We had to put it off last Sunday because one of the players couldn't make it, and I'm not going to start a campaign a player down. But ideally, this Sunday I'll be able to make it, and so we'll be able to start Tombstone campaign, and hopefully you'll stop by for that, and if not, then that's fine. Catch me back here next week, and I'll tell you how it went. Bye!